Okay.
Howard away.
Okay,
Yes.
Howard's away.
all right. It's 6:30. It is, what day is it? Wednesday, May 7th. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Harpswell Planning Board. We have a short agenda tonight, but we could have some discussion. So I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask Dan, our vice chair, if he would lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have an agenda. We have two applicants tonight, which we will get to, David and Lori Haggerty and Benjamin and Christine Twining. Before we start the meeting, or before we get into the agenda, let's have the members introduce themselves and make sure we have a quorum.
Courtney Snellings.
Amy Heibel.
Dan Pullbeck.
Lori Rice.
Christine Donovan Hall.
And I'm Margaret McIntyre, the interim.
All right, thank you. We need 4 members for a quorum. We have 5.
Oop, you turned yourself
Turn
off.
myself off. If Christine is willing to vote, if we have a tie or we
Yeah,
have
that'll be
somebody
fine.
doesn't want to vote. Thank you, Christine. And thank you for always being here
Oh,
and
you're welcome.
being willing. All right, our first item of business is 250501, David and Lori Haggerty. We have a pretty much complete application here. There's only one issue that stands unresolved at this point. This is an application for the conversion of what is now empty space into an office space for the Anchor. It's map 23, lot 19. It's on the west side of Harpswell Island Road. The address is 2118 Harpswell Island Road. The lot is improved with a standalone 2-bedroom cottage at the back and a 2-story multi-use building that currently houses a seasonal restaurant and a real estate office. The lot is located in the Interior District, and it's subject to the requirements of the Basic Land Use Ordinance, so those are the provisions under which we will be reviewing this application tonight. I just want to make a note that prior to the Haggertys owning the property, it was owned by Chris and Heather Coffin. They ran a restaurant out of the non-residential building that's on the front, with the frontage on Harpswell Road. In 2012, they applied to or received approval from the Harpswell Site Plan Review Committee to remove a building and expand the non-residential building by approximately the same footprint. In 2020, the Haggertys bought the property and converted the addition into a real estate office. I'm stating this for the record because there has been some slip between what is on the record and what has actually happened, and I want to just put it out there and make sure it gets in the public record. The applicants propose to expand the office use into the second story of the building, a space that's currently used for storage. It's very well suited for an office. Access to the upstairs and parking will be provided at the rear side of the building, and access to the designated upstairs parking will be from what's called Ada Drive. The board is going to go through the submission requirements for this application and make sure that the submission requirements are all there, but let's hear from the applicant first, since if you'd like, or if you'd like to just
go ahead,
answer
I think,
questions.
and go through them, and then if you
Okay.
have questions for me, I know it's basically about parking, so
Okay,
I was
super.
here to answer any questions you have about that.
Thank you. All right, before we do that, I'd like to turn it over to our planner, Margaret, and see if she's got any updates or anything she'd like to
No,
add.
I just really, I feel like the two issues that I saw, that, not issues, but the two kind of boxes that we needed to check were septic and parking. So I think a lot of this other stuff, although we need documentation of it, like the lighting and the trash removal, it's not really super important because you're not doing any site work. So
But the septic has been,
totally, yeah.
Done, so-
Yeah, so those were the two, my only two real
Oh,
questions
initially,
going
okay.
into this, this
Okay.
application.
Okay, thank you. I think what is really important to note is that we have to get things right on the public record, and that has been a challenge in the past for various reasons. And tonight, that's partly why I read a little bit of the past use of the properties. We need to make sure that we get the public record up to date and accurate, and so that's what we're doing. It may seem like some of the submission requirements are minor, but we do have to be able to show that they have been met, and that the approval is based on the requirements being met. So what I'm going to do, at risk of being a little boring, is I'm just going to go through what some of the submission requirements are, and I'm going to ask the board to go through them with me. I'm actually working off of a May 1 document, but there's an updated document, a May 5 document. They're very much the same. So if I make a mistake, it's probably because I'm reading from the wrong document, but I'll try to make that juxtaposition. So, as I said, this is a site plan review issue, and Section 14 of the Site Plan Review Ordinance specifies the materials that have to be submitted with an application. The board can waive some of those submission requirements if it feels that it's not needed to determine the applicant's compliance with the standards of approval. Since the application involves no development of the site, the planning board could waive the requirements of a boundary survey. So I'm going to make that motion unless someone else wants to make the motion. I'm going to move that we waive the boundary survey submission requirement for Section 14 of the Site Plan Review Ordinance and find that the application is complete in that regard. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Courtney, second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, so boundary submission has been waived. So now we move to Section 15, and this is criteria that serves as minimum requirements for approval of the application. So, since the proposed expanded use of the building doesn't include any development on the property, this is actually a pretty easy thing to review. Some of the site plan review ordinance standards in Section 15 aren't applicable. The planning board's review of the application's conformance with the site plan review standards is divided into two parts: standards that are not applicable and standards that are. This sounds confusing and maybe even redundant. It's the way our ordinance is written, and it's just the way that we have to go through it in order to comply with the ordinance. So I'm going to list the standards that are not applicable to the Haggerty application. And they are 15.1 dimensional requirements, 15.2 utilization of the site, 15.9 stormwater management, 15.6 internal vehicular circulation, 15.7.2 parking layout and design, 15.10 erosion control, 15.13 utilities and essential services, 15.14 natural features and buffering, and 15.22 additional standards for the Mitchellfield Marine Business District. Obviously, this is not in the Mitchellfield Marine Business District, but these are standards that apply to this section of the ordinance. So given that, I will move that the planning board finds that those standards of Section 15 are not applicable to the Haggerty application to expand the non-residential office use to the second story of the existing structure. If there's a second, that'd be great. Okay, Lori, is there any discussion? No discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. All right. Now we're going to move to the standards of Section 15 that are applicable to the Haggerty application. Most of these standards have been met. There's only one standard that hasn't been met, and we will have a discussion about that standard and see where we go with it. What I think I'm going to do is, instead of moving, let's see if I can explain this. The planner suggested that the board make a motion that the application does not meet the standards of Section 15 based on the following findings, the findings that are listed below. I'm not going to make that motion right now. What I'm going to do is ask us to go through those submission requirements, and then we'll address them as a whole at the end. All right? So the first submission requirement is Section 15.3, and it's the adequacy of the road system. And I'm on page 2 of the findings. I think it's still page 2 of the May 5th. Yep, bottom of page 2. So vehicular access to the site has to be on roads that have adequate capacity to accommodate the additional traffic. And that includes 15.3.11 and 15.3.2. The standard is met because Harpswell Island Road will continue to be accessed for the downstairs occupants. There really is no change to the traffic pattern here. Is there anyone who would like to discuss whether or not this standard has been met or not? Okay.
Amy, I just want to make sure on the version that you have, there's a little star where it says trips per day, but in the revised version, it's got a 1 there.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. I will look at both of these as we go along. Okay.
You have the update?
I do. I'm just looking for, where is that star? Is it on page 3?
Yeah, in the middle of, your highlighted section.
All right, I'm going to take your word for it. I'm not going to look for it right now.
Bullet point.
All right, so moving on page 3 to 15.4, access into the site. The recommendation is that the standard has been met. Is there any discussion about that? Okay. Moving on then to 15.5, access and egress, way location, and spacing. The discussion or the recommendation from the planner is that that standard has been met. Is there any discussion about this? All right. Moving on to 15.7, parking. The recommendation of the planner is that this has not been met, this standard, so I'm going to open this up for discussion now.
I'll just start by saying I simply used a formula based on the table that we came up with, but the ordinance does allow for the planning board to grant a waiver to the parking requirements. I was hoping that this would kind of be a moment to have a discussion with the applicant. And, I mean, it's up to you guys, but I only used what was in writing, and maybe we can use a little logic. Yeah.
I would actually like to hear from the applicant, because the restaurant's seasonal, real estate has people coming and going, as does Harpswell Anchor. So get an idea of the flow of each of those businesses, and what that does make a difference on how you look at the parking.
Right. As far as I can speak for the real estate office, and there are some anchor people here that are willing to talk about how they're going to use it. We, typically, I know that the requirement, according to square feet, is 3 people, but very rarely do we have even 3 people in the office. Usually it's 1 person, and sometimes not even that, because we're just busy working from home a lot of times, like people do these days. So I just feel like that, it's very minimal use in traffic as far as my office goes. I mean, every once in a while, we'll have a meeting. And when we've done this before, we've done it when the restaurant's been closed. This year, it's going to be closed on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And so that's when we kind of, plan our office meetings on those days, just to balance out. So I feel like that we've never had an issue with it before, and I really don't see any issues coming up with the anchor being there. We've always had plenty of room.
I also heard you suggest to the anchor at the site walk that if they were going to have meetings.
A meeting
to
that they
do it
would,
on one of the days that the restaurant's closed.
right, and we've talked about that, doing it on one of those days as well, but that the restaurant is closed. And of course, that's only seasonal, and, the anchor may use it a little more regularly than everyone else, honestly, because we slow down in the winter as well. So if you want to speak.
Yeah, for the
From the
record,
anchor.
I'd like to ask somebody from the anchor maybe give some contribution.
Hi. I'm J.W. Oliver. I'm the editor of The Anchor. I'm happy to talk about our plans for the office, answer questions, and thank you for having us here tonight and considering this change of use.
Well, what are your plans for the use of the office?
Well, so I guess I would start by saying that the Anchor staff, we have a staff of 6 now, 3 full-time, 3 part-time, and we all work remotely. And that is not that's not going to change. We have 1 part-time employee who will spend most of their time in the office, and we plan to have part-time hours that the office is open, but we don't anticipate a high volume of foot traffic. Otherwise, the rest of us will continue to do what we do. We might have, for example, I might have hold office hours like professor's hours, once a week, where if people want to come in and with a suggestion or a complaint or anything to deliver a letter, they can come in and talk with us. But generally speaking, it's going to be 1 person there, maybe 20 hours a week. Sometimes there'll be other employees coming and going, but it's not going to be an office where we're all reporting for duty every day. So Lori said that we could plan our meetings on days when the restaurant is closed, and we're certainly willing to do that. I think that our board meets remotely. All our meetings are on Zoom, and we don't plan to change that. And certainly if we are going to have a meeting there, we can plan it accordingly with the restaurant's schedule when they're in season.
Any other questions from the board?
Does anybody from the restaurant happen to be here tonight?
Does anyone from the restaurant happen to be here? They just opened, didn't they? Oh, they're not open yet. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, all right. That may explain why.
I have a
Okay.
question for the applicant who is hiding. Hi. Of course, JW is taller than everybody else, so I'm just curious if for some reason it's like there's a 3-spot discrepancy with the parking.
Right.
Would there even be any
Yeah,
place if something, is there any
Yeah,
space,
I
something could
actually
be
made
added?
up a little outline of parking.
Is it different than what's in the application?
Yes.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
It's more of
Great.
a little outline of parking that
Thank
I
you.
added to there. We keep two trailers there that
Uh-huh.
can be moved, and also this road. I can't see it. Added some. Those are definitely on the side under the tree. Those are easily places that can be,
Yep, I remember.
So that there now are 20 possible spaces,
There
correct?
definitely are more possible spaces
you.
that I did not count in the
Cool.
beginning because I really didn't know. I would have put it in if I did.
Yeah.
But there, have a lot of to use, but it is available to use if needed.
Thank you.
Lori?
Yes.
How wide is the driveway? Because you have 2 parking spaces there. I want to make sure it's wide enough to accommodate 2 cars.
About 22 to 23 feet.
Okay.
You could definitely get around somebody there. And you can look at the size of the cars there.
There are 2 trailers there right now, is
Well,
that correct? or-
there's a work trailer and a boat trailer
Okay.
that you can't see under the trees.
They're
Well,
under the trees, okay. Okay, thank you for that. Dan, do you have any comments or questions?
Well, according to that, then you're talking about having 20 spaces
Right.
on site.
Right. We could definitely, if necessary, have 20 places on site. I just didn't include them. I mean, they're there and they're used. I can move my trailer and the boat trailer somewhere else. So it's very doable. I just didn't know I needed to have that for the application. I didn't know there was a number I needed. I was just counting what we've been using over the past few years.
Right, well, my concern was that even in the past, and, I've gone to the restaurant there for a long time, and it hasn't been a problem, so long as people were able for an overflow to use the post office.
Some people do park in the post office in the evenings when it's empty.
Yeah, and so if you weren't able to get 20 spaces on site, and which you've kind of cured here, my suggestion would be that rather than some sort of an informal, I guess it's okay if people park at the post office, that there be an agreement with the owner of the property that would allow for that.
Yeah, there's probably about 45 owners. She's right there.
That's where I come in. The post office.
You want to come up?
To start with, this is way less use than it used to be when Heather operated her.
Would you state your name and
Oh, I'm
for the
sorry.
record, and maybe pull the microphone down a little bit? We have the same
Hello.
problem. Okay.
I'm Roxanne York. And I used to own the company that Lori owns, but I never lived there. I never worked there. I worked at home. So she bought the building, and when she bought the building, it was a much busier restaurant. The space that's now office space that has usually 1 or 2 cars at it now used to be a restaurant space with all tables. So the use has gone down. The new restaurant that's going to open, we are thinking might use the post office parking. The post office, we were going to lose. We were going to lose it because somebody wanted to up the rent in the post office and punish the town and get rid of the Bailey Island Post Office. So we quickly formed an organization called Save the Bailey Island Post Office, and within 1 month, bought the building and rented it to the post office with $1,000 a share. So we came up with $209,000 within 1 month's time by forming an organization and selling shares. So now, 15 years later, we still have about 89 shares. A lot of us are dead, and some of us have passed on to estates. So I'm stuck every year trying to find everybody and trying to locate where the K-1 forms are going to be sent takes me about 3 months because people don't tell me where the estate is, and some people I don't even know where it is. I've been trying to track them down. It's been very hard detective work to do. So I've come up with a brilliant plan that I am going to sell the post office and pay everybody their shares back to somebody who will be a one-person owner, and they can have one K-1 form. Now, the only people who have a voting share in the Save the Bailey Island Post Office are the people who initially bought at least 5 shares. Out of that, the only people left are my husband, his ex-wife, his, John Frizone, and Les McNally's wife. So there's 4 of us who have a right to vote. So I have somebody doing an appraisal. I will list the property for sale. If somebody buys the property, then the property would be owned by them and all these 89 people would be paid off. And I would no longer have to do all this work. So I would be thrilled if somebody did this. And Lori would be a very good buyer. And the general store would like to buy the post office. However, I will only sell the post office to somebody who will continue to run it as a post office, which is not a very profitable organization. I just signed a 5-year lease. They're paying about $12,000 a year. So whoever buys it will not be making good money on it, but they will be doing a good duty for the town. And it will have to remain a post office as long as the post office will continue to rent from us. So, and they cannot do anything to get them to go away. So I will put that in the deed. I will advertise to sell it with those specifications. Hopefully some knight in shining armor will come up by the post office. I'll get off the hook. One person will own it. They can rent Lori spaces. Or if it's Lori who owns it, she can designate those spaces. Because the spaces, the post office is generally used with 1 or 2 people coming in, and the space on the side isn't used by the post office regularly. I mean, there's 1 person working there. So we hope to keep the post office going. We hope to sell it. I haven't done it yet because I haven't had time, but we hope to sell it. I have 3 people interested. The general store is interested, but he has already stated he wouldn't run it as a post office, so he's out. But he could purchase it, run it as a post office until they no longer rented it and then use it for his own purposes. But that's where we're at.
Wow.
Any questions?
No, but that sounds like a story for the Anchor, if you ask me. So just to be really clear and make a note, this parking plan, which I'm going to call it a plan, the reason that we ask for things like this is so that 5 years down the road, when somebody says, we don't have enough parking there, and comes and complains to the town, we can go into the record and say, this is the parking plan that was approved at the March 7th, 2025 Planning Board meeting, when this got its approval, and it's there, it's in the record, and we know, we don't have to guess where the parking spaces were, right? So that's why we asked for this, and really appreciate your adding this to the record, so.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, super, all right.
Okay. Thank you. You've resolved the issue, because my question was going to be, can we get additional parking by way of a lease from the landowner? But you don't need that at this point either. It would probably be a good business decision later on to have a formal agreement that allows for overflow parking there.
Yeah, and that's something that I
However, that's a business decision that's
Right.
really beyond what we need to do. All we have to do is look at it and say,
Right, but it is-
are you
it's
meeting the
nice to look
requirements
forward.
now with the 20 spaces? And I think you've done it.
Okay.
Does that satisfy you, Margaret?
Yeah, I think there's so many ways to satisfy this. I mean, I think that the restaurant, I think that the restaurant obviously is going to take the most spaces. People will park at the post office whether or not you let them. I know that can't be part of our official approval. I think that the real estate office will probably use one spot. I think
And
Anchor
mostly-
will probably use one spot.
In the summertime, we always park in the back
Yeah.
to give the restaurant all the spaces in
Yeah.
the front. That's kind of what our, unwritten agreement with them is, because we wanted to make it easy for them to do business. I mean, offer them all the spaces for their customers. So it's easy for us to drive around.
Okay.
I think with the current proposed use, there should be plenty of spots.
All righty then. I think based on that discussion, we could revisit the findings of fact and make a motion with some clarifications with regard to parking. So I'm going to try to do that. And I'm flying by the seat of my pants, so I'm sure that Dan will let me know if I'm making a mistake here. Regards to set standard of section 15 that are applicable to the Haggerty application. I move that the planning board finds that the application of David and Lori Haggerty has met the standards of section 15 of the site plan review ordinance based on the findings dated May 5th, 2025, which are incorporated into this motion by reference and by amendment. Section 15.3, adequacy of the road system. Section 15.4, access to the site. Section 15.5, access and egress. Section 15.7, parking.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
at that point, I think we need to note that the standard is met because 20 parking spots will be on.
That was going to be my motion. I'm going to add to that, if I may. The standard is met based on the seasonality of the restaurant business, the irregular use of office space as people are working from home, the flexibility of the anchor to schedule meetings when the restaurant is not in operation, and the drawing submitted May 7th, 2025 by the owner applicant, which shall constitute the parking plan of record. I learned from you. Okay. I think we're on 15.8, pedestrian circulation. 15.11. 15.12. 15.15. 15.16. 15.17, 15.18, 15.19, 15.20, 15.21,
When we get to the conclusions of law, I put all the standards as if we were going to approve it, just with the strikeout. So that should be good for us
All
to
right.
use. Yeah.
Okay, so I have made a motion. Is there,
But
are you looking for a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Courtney seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. So the application is complete with those additional details as stipulated. So in light of these findings, well, actually, would anybody else like to make a motion? It's written right there for us. I don't need to dominate the motions.
You're doing such a good job, though.
No, go ahead, Dan. You're more experienced.
all right. In light of these findings of fact, with consideration given to the supporting documentation in the record, I move that the planning board reaches the following conclusions. The planning board finds that the application to utilize the second story of the commercial building located at Lot 19 on tax map 23 is an expansion of the existing office use, and the planning board approves the application with the following standard conditions of approval. One, the approval is based on the approved plans and on all submissions and information provided by the applicant at final approval, whether referenced in any findings or conditions of approval. Two, this approval is not final until such time as final plans showing all conditions of approval and any waivers granted have been signed by the chair of the planning board. Three, the approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposal and plans contained in the application and supporting documents submitted and affirmed to by the applicant. Any variation from the plan proposals and supporting documents except de minimis changes as determined by the town planner that do not affect approval standards is subject to the review and approval of the planning board prior to implementation. 4, the applicant shall obtain all necessary state and federal approvals before the applicant commences any land use activity pursuant to this site plan approval and shall comply with the requirements of those permits and approvals.
All right, I will second your motion and just make sure that we stipulate that the expansion of the existing office use does meet the standards of the site plan review ordinance. And second it? Any discussion?
In second.
Second? All right, Lori seconds. Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Ooh, that was tricky.
Fun. Go have fun.
So what will happen next is we'll draw up a notice of decision. We will get it notarized for you, and then you'll record it at the Registry of Deeds.
Yeah. I want to thank Margaret for working so closely with the applicant. I know that we usually really like to have our information into the planning department within like 2 weeks before the meeting. And frequently that doesn't happen. It makes all of us have to scramble. But we do really try to work with local businesses and make sure we recognize that folks have trouble getting information together and don't always understand the complexities of the site plan review ordinance. So thank you to Margaret and thank you to all of you for making this a complete package and helping to make our job easier.
All right.
Amy, we just want to say thank you to the board and to Margaret for getting us approved and ready to get in there. We've been our group that Janice and Doug and Robin were all a part of starting has been publishing the Anchor for 4 years now, and I'd say for the majority of that time we've been looking for somewhere to set up shop, and there aren't many options in Harpswell, and so we're excited to be down on Bailey Island, and I don't know, can we start moving in right away, or do we need to wait for the paperwork to get all notarized and so forth, or?
I think you're good.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Have fun. All right. Gives us a reason to come down and eat at that restaurant.
Yeah.
That worked out.
Okay, yeah.
I'm glad they came up with those questions. That made it easier.
Margaret, you've got a copy of the map, right?
Yeah,
Can you date the map and maybe even have it signed by Lori?
I dated the map. I think it needs to be signed by you.
Okay,
I think it needs to be signed by the chair.
okay, super.
Yeah.
There's no date on it.
I did date mine already.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we'll get you, I have a stamp for you.
Okay, all right, good. Okay.
Small town, the post office thing. It was
Oh, my God. Oh, my word.
This one worked out, though. It was not, it
kind
worked
of like
it worked good.
Barleyfield Point.
Yeah,
They
Yeah.
have so much post office pride on me.
Oh, yeah. You were there, weren't you? You were there.
People will like come from, on their vacations, they'll specifically come to that post office.
Really?
And buy their stamps for however long.
So it can
make sure
stay
they-
open.
So they have the revenue.
It's gotta stay busy,
Oh,
yeah.
how
Yeah.
cute. Okay.
So people really go out of their way to give the post office revenue. Very cute.
Oh, that is cute.
But having 40, that would be a challenge to try and trace everybody down over time as it gets more.
Good luck, Janice.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And just like that, it gets emptied out.
All right.
All right, now we go boom.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 250502 Benjamin and Christine Twining, who are owners. This is an application for drilling and blasting on map 39, lot 19, address of 14 Sanctuary Road. It's a consideration of an application to blast more than 300 cubic yards. Just to summarize this project, the Twinings own a lot at 14 Sanctuary Road. The lot has approximately 341 feet of frontage that abuts Gunpoint Road and 385 feet of water frontage on Gunpoint Cove. It's just under 5 acres at 4.76. It's part of the Paul Nelson subdivision. It's currently developed as a single-family dwelling, and it's non-conforming currently in regards to the 75-foot setback from the upland edge of a coastal wetland. On February 12th of this year, 2025, the Codes Office issued a permit to tear down the non-conforming dwelling and build a replacement in a conforming location. And the applicant proposes to blast 520 cubic yards for the foundation of this new conforming dwelling unit, this replacement structure, and 190 feet trench for the water, power, and septic lines and the underground propane and septic tanks. As we said before, the town has a blasting ordinance, so they need to come before the planning board in order to have approval for that for the blasting that's proposed to be done. Margaret, do you have anything to add?
No,
Okay.
pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward. Does the applicant want to add anything? You don't have to, but. Yep. Okay. Okay, yep. Okay, so the house has been removed. Okay, great. All right, so the performance standards for blasting are that the hours of, and this is section 4 of the blasting ordinance, that blasting shall be limited to daylight hours no earlier than 8 a.m. or later than 7 p.m., Monday through Friday inclusive. Detonation or of misfires may occur outside these times, but they have to be reported to the Codes Office in accordance with Section 5 of this ordinance, and blasting is prohibited on the following legal holidays: New Year's Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Before we make any motions, I know that there were several abutters that were notified of this project, and I don't see anyone in the audience who is here to discuss the project as an abutter, but I wanted to just ask if there's any letters or if anyone has anything. Okay?
No, I
Nope,
haven't heard a
there's- No, okay.
And there were no abutters at the site visit either.
That's true, okay. So I will move that the planning board finds that the standards are met since the applicant states they will only blast between the hours of 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Lori, thank you. Any discussion?
I'm thinking maybe this is in here somewhere, and if it is, I'm sorry. Is there a limit to how many blasts you have between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m.? Like, could it be 400 blasts? Is it 10 blasts? I'm sorry, I don't know this, but I was wondering.
Can you come up, if you're going to answer, come up to the podium and state your name and,
Tim Jerrington, owner of Drone and Blasting Specialist. Normally, we shoot what we can cover with the blasting mats safely. It takes time to drill the holes, prepare, then you got to put mats on. So, it's usually every 2 hours or so, you might blast, depending on the depth and stuff like that.
So that's quite a few blasts then, on a
You
daily
could-
basis.
You could have 4 or 5 usually, probably, on a daily basis. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
But I do remember, if your procedure is the same as last time you were here, you try to do smaller blasts.
Right.
So you might do more,
Right.
but they're going to be a little bit smaller.
Any anticipated use of I might get the terminology wrong, the rock hammer or that pounding drill?
Whole ram?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's just too much ledge there to try to whole ram that out.
So just be blasting only?
Yeah, be more of a nuisance than us blasting, I think, hammering that.
Yeah,
And then it's always up in the air whether you can get it all
okay.
with a hammer.
Could you,
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Chip Thorner, I'm the builder. The only time we use something like that is if Tim's gone, we blasted everything, and let's say you find a little hump of ledge that the water line has to go through, but it's just a small thing, then to get him back and by rights talk to you guys again, because now we're blasting again, then it makes more sense for the hoe ram. But as everyone who knows, who's heard that, they're really annoying. They're effective for a very small portion of stuff, but we generally stay away from that.
Okay, thank you. One question that we often ask, even though we really don't have any say over it, is just where's the blasting material going to go? And sometimes people know, sometimes they don't, but
Yeah, some of it we'll use on site. Typically, I try to build basically a construction road around the house, which here we can on the front edge, the water edge, but something that's solid for a lull and a man lift. And if we can then use that to kind of taper things out, we'll use it as a bed and cover it with loom. And if not, we just haul it away.
okay. Thank you.
Sure.
So I have a couple more motions here. Oh. We have a second. Lori seconded.
Yes.
We had discussion. All those in favor? Thank you. Unanimous. All right. Couple more votes. This next one is 4.2, which is water quality protection. I'm going to move that the planning board finds that this standard, section 4.2, water quality protection, is met since the applicant notified abutters within 250 feet of the blast site by certified mail of their right to a pre-blast water test. Right. Is there a second? We have a second from Dan. Any discussion?
I'm just curious. They've been notified. Do we know that they received the notification? I'm just wondering why people would not want to have a test beforehand, before the blasting. I know it's like certified, so then it's gone. Do we get, because I don't send certified mail, do we get any kind of proof that the people actually received the mail? We do, okay.
I mean, we
Thank
don't,
you.
they would,
no,
the,
they get a green card back.
Okay.
that says they
And you
actually
guys got
signed
the
for
green
it.
cards back, I'm assuming? Yeah, I don't have my big thing with me, sorry. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Not everybody lives in the state of Maine either, so it may not have been
Yeah, most of them
convenient.
don't. When I looked at
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, I was
they
just
send their
curious.
tax bills
yeah,
don't.
exactly, I was just gonna say that. The
What was
mailing
that?
address that we have on file and that you'll find in the assessor's database is where the tax bill goes. So if they're not where they will be in August, then if they're at their second home, they may not be getting their mail in a timely fashion.
But legally, as long as we're sending it to the address on notice,
Yeah,
we have met our legal obligation.
Yep, I was just curious.
Okay, we've had a motion and a second from Dan. We have, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Section 4.2 is satisfied. Section 4.3, ground vibrations, air blast pressure, and seismographic records have to comply with state law. I move that the planning board finds that this standard 4.3, is met since the applicant has a permit for explosives user from the state of Maine. Any second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right. Thank you, Courtney. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay, I move in light of these facts and the votes with consideration given to the supporting documentation in the record that the planning board reaches the following conclusions. The board finds that the applicant drilling and blasting rock specialists on behalf of the owners Jerry and Ruth Welch have met.
Twining, that's a typo.
Oh, great.
It should say Benjamin and Christine Twining.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
Benjamin and Christine.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, as the planner has corrected, have met the standards of the Town of Harpswell blasting ordinance. The planning board approves the application for a blasting permit to remove over 300 cubic yards of material via approximately 15 blasts on map 39, lot 19. That kind of addresses Courtney's issue. So motion, any second to that motion?
Do you want the conditions of approval?
Okay, yeah. All right, conditions of approval. The applicant must provide a pre-blast assessment per the requirements of section 3.2H(a) and B. At the time the permit is granted by the CEO, no blasting shall occur between 8 a.m. or after 7 p.m. on weekdays or on weekends or legal holidays. Okay. I think we had Lori as a second.
Yeah.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor? Thank you. So be it, and so it is. It is done.
All right.
Thank you.
Tim, the blaster, I'll try to not put you last on the agenda next time. You're 2 for 2. Sorry. I just put them on in the order that we get, when the order that they arrive in the office, so. Next
do
time
the
I'll
best
put you
you
on
can.
top.
Doesn't pay to drive home.
Good job.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
Yeah, you're all set, thank you.
Yeah.
I like your ponytail,
You're
too.
released.
I do. It's very youthful.
You can go to recess now.
Not many people.
As a lawyer, you can't do that. As a photographer,
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. All right, moving on. Other business. We have consideration of the minutes from January 29th, February 12th, February 19th, March 19th of the 2025 meetings. I am willing to entertain a motion.
I move that the minutes be accepted.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Deanna, second that. All those in favor? Thank you. All right.
Wonderful, guys.
I didn't want you
Okay.
to add any more.
I know, really. Okay, planners update, summary of 429 workshop with MDEP.
So I handed out everybody an excellent summary that Courtney wrote.
No, actually, I wrote it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at Courtney talking about Amy. That Amy
I was going to
wrote.
say,
Nice job, Courtney. Courtney did make some really good suggestions. She caught me out in some typos and misuse of words.
So Amy did a really excellent summary. It's been shared with anybody who attended the meeting. There were a couple people. There was one abutter from Pole Island.
Right.
We spent the majority of the meeting talking about Pole Island because it's a really great example of what is so impossible about the DEP's regulations. Jeff Kalinich was very receptive. I think in the end, he said he's going to go talk to the DEP, the other shoreline zoning coordinators, and his boss, and try to come up with some solutions for us. And in the meantime, we're kind of in a holding pattern until we know what our next steps are.
Okay.
What I found encouraging is that Judy Colby George of Viewshed was at this meeting, who was our consultant for the project. She said she's working for at least 4 other towns now doing the same project. So everybody's going to go through this. Everybody's going to come up with the same questions. And I look forward to seeing what other people come up with using the same set of standards. So I think it's kind of an impossible task. I will add that I talked to Aga from Drummond Woodsum the other day. We had a, I can't remember how his name starts with a D, but we had a workshop with her in the fall sometime, I don't know, early winter. And I kind of picked her brain because she had some suggestions at the time. I really wanted her to give me an answer, which she doesn't have, of kind of what to do next. She gave me some ideas, which I have here. She didn't really give me anything super helpful other than, we're always, she kind of suggested that we're always available. The option is there for us to be more restrictive than the DEP. And if we want to take the approach of carving out areas in town that we consider to be developed and leaving the rest of the town to be considered undeveloped, that is our prerogative. And we can do our maps like that and then present them to the DEP. And she thought the DEP would be very favorable to that idea. So, so that was kind of one of her ideas, but she basically said, whatever we come up with, if we, can support our argument of why that's where we put the lines, that the DEP will probably support it. Doesn't tell us where to put those lines. That's really my
That's
problem.
the hard part, yeah.
But that, we did have that conversation, and I'm happy to involve her again at any point if we want her to be. But until we have kind of how we're going to move forward, I don't know what to do.
I think that this meeting Margaret put together for us was really, what's the word I'm looking for? It was long overdue and really helpful for Mr. Kalinich. He didn't quite understand, and I don't think his colleagues at DEP quite understood the complexity of Harpswell's situation with these maps until he actually saw it at a meeting on the face of it. And as a result of the meeting that we had, he's going back to talk to his colleagues about how to really revise the way that the state looks at this whole issue.
Glad he was here.
I'm really glad he was here because, it just shows the importance of meeting face-to-face and actually having a face-to-face discussion. Because when he met with us before, and we didn't have Judy there, and he didn't really understand why this was so difficult for Harpswell. And so the second meeting really pulled things together for him, I think. We're also under the gun in terms of the law requires that we catch up now, and the maps, we haven't really had accurate maps up to this date. But I think what he saw and heard was that Harpswell is kind of between a rock and a hard place. I told him flat out, we're not going to go before the public to recommend these zoning map changes when the state isn't really clear about what the regulations are as they apply to the complexities of Harpswell. Because the planning board only has one shot at really explaining this, and if we don't do a good job, then we're going to get a lot of pushback, and that's not going to be good for anybody. So we're going to have another meeting when Margaret schedules another meeting after Jeff gets back.
When we have something to talk about, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, if it takes too long, we can always just schedule another workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has he gotten back to you yet?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Because really having him, we need him to have clarification with his colleagues and an answer for us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just going to be another round robin meeting with no moving forward.
Exactly.
What I did find a little bit encouraging was that I felt like we had a hard time defending our map to the general public last time. At least I did. I I had a lot of conversations with people,
Yeah.
especially Kurt Pelsu from Pole Island, who really did not agree with our maps. But I was encouraged by Jeff saying, like, it's the DEP making us do this. It's not us doing it because we want to. This language is in there, and we are behind the times. We need to catch up and update our maps. So I thought that was a little bit encouraging. Like, it's not our decision to. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that he made clear was that the designations end at the lot line, which is really good. That was really good. So,
And also a little hard.
Yeah.
yeah.
Because what if the lot line, what if there's 2,000 feet of water frontage? You know, and then, well, anyways, that's.
Yeah,
we can
no,
get into that discussion.
this is just, it's almost a lot by lot designation. We have a lot of work to do on this because we should be undoing some of the commercial fishing designations. And then we need to take a look at the shoreline zoning maps in light of the unofficial map that the fishing community has put forward and that we had a public hearing on last Saturday. And so there's a lot to take into consideration. But anyway, just wanted to thank Margaret and update the board on that.
Okay.
But you'd think there's other towns, go up the coast. There's so many other towns that are in the same situation we are. What did they do?
What Jeff said, though, that was really interesting was, and this is such a blessing that in many ways, is we have a lot of large lots, large undeveloped lots.
Yeah.
They're used to dealing with these small, sort of shorefront towns that are pretty clearly nested and then have development outward. But we have large spaces that aren't developed, which the DEP regs don't really, it does make it more complex. He didn't really get that, and I always have a hard time explaining this, that zoning, let's see if I can put this in here. That I may not, okay, so it was clear that the current rules might actually promote shoreland development over time because land is considered developed if there are two principal structures within 500 feet of each other. And on larger lots, the construction of a new principal structure could kick a neighboring property out of resource protection under the current rules. He didn't get that, even though Matt really tried to explain it to him. Matt and someone else really tried to explain it to
But he
him.
got it at that meeting?
He got it at this meeting.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea of like a development creep, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Exactly.
got that. Did.
Oh, good, at least he understood that finally.
Yeah, he kind of had an aha moment, I think.
I do have some other things really fast. The Times Record is only printing 1 day a week. And for most of our all of our bylaws mandate that we advertise with the Times Record. There are state requirements for subdivision amendments, that noticing requirements, but I would like permission from the board to look into revising the bylaws to remove the requirement to advertise with the Times Record. And I reached out to Howard to see if that was a project that he was willing to take on, if you guys are okay with it. Howard and I can work together and then come up with a draft for you guys to read at the next meeting.
Good.
I know paper readership across every municipality is
I think the Harpswell, if we put our information in the Harpswell Anchor, it would reach 100% more people.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't think probably one person.
I don't read Times Record.
But
don't
does,
get
I
those.
don't, does
Because
that
it's
meet
more
the
like
state
Brunswick, you
requirements?
know?
No, oh no, it doesn't. We would still have to advertise in
Maybe
the
do both.
In the
Times Record.
newspaper of general circulation or whatever. that-
Yeah, and it has to be second class, and I don't know what class the Times Record is. I mean, the Harpswell Anchor. We can always also advertise in the Portland Press Herald if we need to. But our bylaws say that we have to put our agenda in the Times Record, any new items. So maybe a solution is we just have a standing ad in the Anchor that points them to our our website. The problem is that their cutoff for their ad and our cutoff for our application deadline don't line up. So, right, and we don't have our deadline till the end of the month, so that doesn't really work as far as actually putting our agenda in the paper, but
I mean, it would go in the online version, but I don't know whether that's good enough.
What you
The
could
online
do in
version,
the
you're
ad is
updating
just that the
online.
online version
Yeah.
is updated on this date.
yeah.
That's true.
Well, it could be for our purposes, but for state purposes, for ordinance amendments, all that kind of stuff.
And subdivision amendments.
Subdivision, yeah.
Right. Problem.
So we'll still have to advertise on one of the other papers, but we might save ourselves a lot of money.
Yeah, let's do that.
Advertising in the Times Record's really pricey.
Okay.
All right, with your blessing, I will work on it.
What does next month look like for applications?
We have one in 2 weeks.
Well, we have a meeting in 2 weeks with 3 applicants. There's a tear down rebuild. There is a site plan amendment. And there is one other.
It is.
Now I can't remember.
Okay. All right,
But if
It
you leave your,
is,
oh,
there's a jurisdictional review,
okay.
yeah, that's
there's
the,
a wharf in the
oh,
resource.
that's the wharf. Yep, on Hildreth
Oh.
Road.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Is that the wharf that the select board was dealing with? No, it's a different one. Okay,
No, that's not.
okay.
So yeah, that's in 2 weeks. The site visits are next Monday. If you leave your books for me, I can have them ready by tomorrow. Have everything put together. And sorry about the snafu about the application deadline for Lori. It's a really hard line I feel like, for me to walk
Yeah.
between getting your information to you and feeling like I'm being helpful and patient with the applicant. And in this case, a lot of times, yeah. In this case, it did not work out.
It was a
because-
simple enough situation that it
Yeah.
didn't, but it could be more complex and that would not.
Totally. So I'll just try to keep you updated and keep you.
I mean, you can always blame the board and say that the
Yeah.
board has a policy that it will not put something on the agenda if we don't have the complete packet of information. Because there's no point in us reviewing an application if it's not complete. It wastes our time and their time. And I realize that you're between a rock and a hard place, but if we can try to, go ahead and use the board as your backup on that. I realize you live here and you have to deal with people, but
Yeah.
these were pretty simple back and forth things, so it made sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully we have a new member, Heather Allen. Hopefully she'll be here at the next meeting. I'm not sure. And if anybody needs a copy of the planning board bylaws or the planning board manual that's published by MMA, Maine Municipal Association, I have those. I've been reading it. It's got some really cool information, a lot of old court cases and stuff. Yeah, but
Ooh.
I know. But if
I'm such a nerd.
yeah. But if
Nerd
anybody wants
level.
some information and feels like doing some deeper dives into planning board, I have some resources for you.
So I won't be probably at the site walk next week because I have a doctor's appointment, but,
Me either. I have a dental
okay, so
appointment, and you're
So is this
gone.
coming Monday?
you're gone, so you only have,
Could be around.
I won't be here. I'm up in Florida.
Well, Lori,
All right.
It's just going to be me then?
Well, I think Howard. might
How will
be
be
back.
there? Okay.
Maybe Heather.
Maybe Heather.
Maybe Heather,
She's been
okay.
invited. Yeah.
okay. All right. Thank you all very
have-
much.
Thank you.
I have one.
Oh.
One matter. We had talked at the last meeting, I believe, about the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee,
Yes.
which by its nature requires a planning board
Right.
liaison. I got approached by the committee to become a full member of the committee because I've got a lot of flooding, and with the library.
It floods all the time.
And with the library, we were basically the poster child for how you handle So I have gone on there as an official member of the committee rather than as the liaison. So we have a couple of options. You can either just have me report back, or if you, because Amy had offered to be the liaison, you know,
I'm happy for you to do double duty. You should. Why on earth would we need two people?
Right.
but yeah, we had our first meeting yesterday. It's a good committee, and I think we're going to be able to accomplish some really nice
It's a
things.
really important committee. It's really, the planning board needs to be up to date on what's going on.
Yeah, it was a bit confusing during the process of me being asked to be on the board, because we were kind of talking like this about, well, what about me, what about Amy and all that, but we got that all resolved because we weren't getting anything accomplished at the town meeting anyway.
Oh, my God.
All right, that's what I've got.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Anything else?
See you in 2 weeks.
All right,
Meeting adjourned?
meeting adjourned.
Great, thank you.
Go forth and be happy.